This NCFE Learner Toolkit recording is on revision tips. So when it comes to revision tips, I know the phrase is work smarter, not harder, but when it comes to revision, sometimes we need to put some hard work in to reap the rewards. But if we work smart, we could spend less time revising and have more chance of what we spend our time studying, not only going in, but being easily retrievable, being able to pull that information out of your head under the stress of an assessment situation. So as an example, we have a learner who spends hours and hours revising a topic by rereading their notes, and then when it comes to their exam, their mind is a blank. Compare this with a learner who spends similar amount of time, but it's in smaller revision chunks interspersed with active recall. So that's testing themselves, so that when it comes to the final assessment, their brain is operating on all cogs and they can easily retrieve and use the mathematical skills they need to succeed. Now, a great strategy for self-testing that's highly portable is revision cards. Revision cards have a range of purposes. So if you're going to make revision cards for yourself, what you may want to do is you could start off by giving yourself simple questions that assess underpinning skills, such as what is 25% as a fraction and as a decimal, and then you would put the answer on the other side of the card. The calculations may become more complicated. So, for example, here we need to substitute in 6 for n and then solve, which it would then be possible to do, but you can give yourself that as a little test to do. And then on the back, you would have the answer written down for yourself. So you're testing yourself using revision cards. Alternatively, rather than having a specific question, it could be a process that you need to remember, such as how to find the mean from a grouped frequency table. On the one side of the cards, you'd have, the question, how do you find the mean from a group frequency table? And then on the other side of the card, you would then note down the steps that you need to follow. That would be true for any question that looks at, for example, finding the mean from a group frequency table, or there's other processes that you may want to put on your revision cards. And it may be worth elaborating on this on your cards with signs to spot in a question that this is the process to follow. So for example, if you're not sure of how to identify whether or not a question is asking you if you need to find the mean from a group frequency table, you could add in keywords like estimate or mean, or the fact that it would give you a group frequency table. And you can easily make these yourself, and it is best to make your own, because just the action of writing your own cards is also a form of revision for you. Alternatively, you can find some ready-made cards on the links here, or by searching the internet for the titles that you can see here on the slide. Now, do be aware that when it does come to, what should I revise? Okay, right, I'm going to make my revision cards, but if you're deciding what on earth do you need to revise, the truth is you do need to have a very good grounding in all of the subject content for functional skills. Now, you can find the full subject content for functional skills either on the Learner Guide on the Learner Toolkit page, or within the qualification specification on the NCFE website, or from the Department for Education. If you just do a search for Department for Education, functional skills, level 2, for example, maths content, it will list all of the content that you must know for your functional skills assessments. And there really are no shortcuts. You really do need to be very, very fully familiar with all of the subject content that hopefully you will have also been taught in your sessions with your tutors. Other ways that you may want to revise is you can, if you take our learner checklists. So we've got learner checklists on the Learner Toolkit page. So if you go to the NCFE website, you can search for the Learner Toolkit, and on there we've got checklists, and you can use these as a revision tool by giving yourself questions that test the learning outcome, or you might want to give yourself an example as well as testing yourself. So for example, here we've got all of the learning outcomes are listed on these learner checklists. I can use simple scale drawings to identify the actual dimensions, such as a scale drawing of a garden, for example. And then you can give yourself a question, so you're testing yourself. Alternatively, you can use the learning objectives to search for examples or explainer videos or questions, or you could even ask AI to create examples and questions with answers for you to test yourself. And do remember, if you are going to, remember when you are using AI that sometimes AI can give you some strange results that aren't necessarily correct. But also, we've got the learning outcomes we've got here on the slide. They are all single and individual on their own, but in your assessment there will be problem solving questions where it combines different subject content statements and combines different learning outcomes. So do think about that if you're going to be using AI to create questions for yourself. Now, other ways of revising, you may have little mnemonics that you use. So a mnemonic is just a little way of remembering something. So for example, never eat shredded wheat. I use that still to this day. If anybody asks me about compass points, north, east, southwest, that reminds me, going around the circle clockwise, it goes north, east, southwest. Never eat shredded wheat. That's the way I remember it. A mnemonic may not be a word, it could be something physical. So for example, there is a little times table finger trick, and I'll show you it on here. You don't have to know this, but if it is something that you do know and it helps you, then you know that's great. So the times table finger trick, just so you know what I'm talking about, for the times table finger trick, what we do is we write the numbers from 6 to 10 on our fingers, like seen here. And then if you want to do a multiplication, so here we're going to do 9 times 7. So we link up the 7 and the 9 together. And then to find out the answer, the bottom, you multiply the bottom fingers. So you've got 3 on this side and 1 there. So 3 times 1 is 3. So we know that the multiplication is going to end in 3, and then above the join we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fingers including the join, so each one is worth 10, so we go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, so it's 63. So 9 times 7 is 63. So another example, 7 times 8 or 8 times 7, it's exactly the same thing, and it works no matter which way round you join the fingers. So if we're going to do 7 times 8, we'll take the top fingers first. So above and including the join, we've got 5 fingers, so that gives us 50. And then below, we've got 2 fingers on this side, 3 on that side, so 2 times 3 is 6, so that gives us 56. So that's just a little trick. If it helps you, you can use it, and if it doesn't help, don't use it at all. But that's what we mean by a mnemonic. It's just it could be a word or a phrase or something physical to help you to remember something. Another one we've got listed on here is Adam. So Adam applies to ratios, which A is add the parts in the ratio, D is divide the amount by the parts, and then multiply to find the given ratio. But it only works if the question format looks like this. For example, sand and cement mixed in the ratio 1:3 to make mortar. 24 kilograms of mortar is used. How much cement is used? So A, add. With the number of parts, 3 plus 1 is 4, so there's 4 parts in total. Then we divide, so 24 divided by 4 gives us 6. So 1 part is worth 6. and then we multiply. So how much cement is used? Sand and cement. So the cement is the 3. 3 times 6 is 18. So 18 kilograms of cement is used. So it works if the question looks like that. But what if the question looks like this? Sand and cement are mixed in the ratio 1:3 to make mortar. 10 kilograms of sand is used. How much cement will be needed? Now, if I try to use Adam to solve this, and I add up my parts again, I've got 4 parts, and then I divide the 10 by 4 to give me 2.5, and then I do the multiply, 2.5 times 3, I come up with an answer of 7.5 kilograms because I followed the mnemonic that I've remembered, but I've remembered it without understanding, because in truth, for this example, 10 kilograms gives me the amount of sand, so 10 is what 1 part is worth. So how much cement do I need? 3 times 10, 30. That's how much I need. So please do be aware that if you're going to learn a mnemonic, you need to understand the mnemonic, because if a question is given to you in a different way, you may not understand it. So that is incorrect. So we've crossed it out. Cherry pie is delicious. You may know this. So it's because cherry, that stands for, we've got the C there for circumference. So circumference is pi d. So we've got cherry pie d. C equals pi d. Alternatively, apple pies are too. So that's for area is pi r squared. Not ratio times 2, but r squared. So that's another little mnemonic that you may have been taught, and it's all well and good knowing these mnemonics, providing you understand them. There's also this one. Hey diddle diddle, the median's the middle. You add and divide for the mean. The mode is the one that you see the most, and the range is the difference between. So you may know some of these mnemonics, you may have never heard of them at all. And if you've never heard of them, there's no need for you to go out of your way to remember these, all right? But if you have been taught them, you need to understand them correctly so that if a question is in a different format, you understand how to actually solve it. Revision notes. You may want to make revision notes. Summarizing your notes can be a way to condense your class notes down. A template like this can support with summarizing. So we've got the subject content statement here, which you can get, as I said, direct from the Department for Education if you need it. And then you can make a column. What skills processes do you need to remember for this? What do you, and this will be a note to yourself, what do you often forget or get wrong? So if you are going to make revision notes, you know, absolutely you can do this, but do be aware that simply making revision notes and then rereading them, even highlighting them and rereading them, is not as effective a revision strategy as it is for you to test yourself. Okay, just simply making notes and rereading them is not an effective revision strategy. It may be part of your revision strategy, but do also think about how you're going to test yourself. Mind maps, that's another way that you can summarize specific content areas. So we might start with a topic area, so percentages, then we branch off all of the subject content statements that relate to that topic. And then from that, we then branch off again to break down what this actually means. So you can test yourself here by thinking, you know, how do I identify and know the equivalence between fractions, decimals and percentages? Well, if I want to write something as a fraction of 100, I simplify, I make it out of 100. So 63% would be 63 out of 100. And then I would simplify this to turn a fraction into a percentage, or divide. If I want to know how to get from to get a decimal, I can divide by 100 to turn a percentage into a decimal. So you can make your own mind map. You can pause this recording and have a little look at this and see if this is helpful. But the same with the previous slide, just drawing or writing these out is not going to be enough to ensure success. You need to engage in active recall activities, which basically means testing yourself. Practice tests on the skills to ensure you can use the skills under time pressure. You can find practice questions in the past questions collated documents in our Learner Toolkit, and there are also some worked answers, and those worked answers can be really helpful for you when you are answering and then comparing it with the worked answers. Do bear in mind that the past questions are not in the new style that you're going to be sitting your live assessments in, but they are still good practice because they do assess the same content. So you'll find the worked answers in the past questions collated by topic in the Learner Toolkit. So I wish you the very best with your revision.